Hey guys, welcome to the video. So today I'm just going to be doing a walkthrough and explaining the whole process as I put together a Seiko NH34 GMT automatic watch. This is the movement right here. It's got 24 joules and about 40-hour power reserve, and this was my very first build and it was super fun. So yeah, I didn't have a movement holder, so I've popped the movement into a watch holder here, but later on in the video I do get a movement holder and I also get a better camera setup, and so the video improves a bit later on. So the first thing I'm going to do here is add a movement guard cover. This is a little modification that goes onto the movement guard, which is that little piece of metal, that plate that protects the movement as the watch is winding, as you move around with an automatic watch. So the first thing to do is to add some double-sided tape to the inside of this little mod plate. And here I'm adding the double-sided tape using 2 pairs of tweezers. When I went through the build, I think the best thing was having both the steel-tipped and the plastic-tipped tweezers. I do have another video showing everything I bought, including the tools and all the parts needed to build the watch. So that's super useful to watch as well if you want to know what you need when you're going to do this yourself. So I've been inspired by many other YouTubers and watch builders, and particularly this watch build was inspired by a YouTuber called Elliot Cole, who's a great watch builder. And yeah, I saw something he built and thought, let me try build something very similar to that because his watch looked great. So I add this modification plate, but later on you'll see with the mod plate on the movement guard, I couldn't actually close the back of the watch case. So at the very end, I removed this, and I mean, the watch still looks cool. Just pretty sad that I couldn't have this little turquoise cover on the movement guard. So just checking that everything's lined up right, and there it is with that turquoise modification plate. Looked pretty cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is add the dial to the watch. So I had bought 2 dials. Again, you'll see that in the video where I do the unboxing and buying all the parts. And so I've got a GMT watch dial here, and then I've got an absolutely plain white dial with no markings. Doesn't say GMT, doesn't have a waterproof rating. And now I'm just taking the movement back out of the case, and these little dials, when you buy them, they can actually fit onto different movements. And so they have these little pedestals or legs on the dial, and you look at your dial and you look at your movement and you see where the legs line up, and then you remove the extra legs so that you can fit this dial to this specific movement. So I've decided here to not go with the plain white dial, but to rather go with the GMT dial. I think it looks much better. And yeah, you have to break off the extra little legs and then just simply press the dial onto the movement. So using this rubber blower, I just get rid of any dust that's happened to fall onto the movement, and then I add it on. So you just push down carefully, making sure that the legs are lined up and it clips into place. So there's a quick look at the movement, and the dial fitted quite nicely. Okay, so here we are with a much better setup and 2 camera angles, so you can see the work going on the dial much better. And you can see that I have the hands on the watch, and that the GMT hand that I've used doesn't really match up with the turquoise hands for the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. So what I'm going to do is remove the hands and replace this GMT hand with the turquoise one that comes with this set of hands. I think it just will look much better. So I haven't shown this initial addition of the hands onto the dial because I'm going to do it again here. And so it would be pointless me adding the hands to the watch twice. So let's go from here. So the first thing I do is get set up and then use the hand removal tool to take off these hands. Now, it's advisable to use something called a dial protector or a little piece of plastic between the hand remover and the dial because you really don't want to scratch that dial. Now get rid of this GMT hand and then clean the dial. So I pick up the movement and get everything set up again so that as the date clicks over to the next day, my hand should be at 12 o'clock exactly. And there's another look at the back of the movement with that mod plate on it. So I clean off the dial, make sure that the hands aren't bent, and just put all the hands out of the way. Now I'm just going to add that GMT hand that matches the rest of the hands on the watch. Once again, just make 100% sure that I'm clicking over to the next day as my GMT hand is lined up at 12 o'clock. Trying to line up everything perfectly. Adding the hands is like the trickiest thing. So now I use the hand placement tool to add the hour hand, line it up exactly, and yeah, that looks good. So just making sure that the hands are not touching, I put it onto the exact right height on the pinion. And once I've got the GMT hand and the hour hand on, then I add the minute hand. And you can see there the old GMT hand that I had before, which really doesn't look as good as this turquoise one. So just making sure everything's lined up. And now for the second hand. The second hand was definitely the most tricky. Instead of a portion of the hand encircling the pinion, it actually fits right on top and you push it down into that pinion. So you really have to be careful to not bend it and make sure that everything's aligned and all the hands are still straight so that they can all turn independently and your watch can keep time. Okay, so what I've got here now is a little steel washer that functions to push the movement down into the case. And this didn't actually come with the watch case. I bought it afterwards when I was doing the build initially, because having put this modification plate on the movement guard, I couldn't screw in the watch back completely and get a good seal without the watch back actually touching that modification plate, and that prevented the watch from running correctly. So I bought this little steel washer, which you can see there in the top right, um, with the hope that if I added the movement into the case and then added the steel washer and then screwed back the back of the watch, then everything would fit great, and this would push the movement into the case further. Um, but it didn't really work out that way. And here what I'm trying to do is remove the crown stem. There's a tiny little clasp that you push down on, and then you can remove the crown stem. It took me a while to do that because actually that little clip that you push down on to pull out the crown stem doesn't stick up for you to push it down unless the crown stem is all the way in. So you have to have the watch running for you to be able to take this crown stem out. Now I'm just adding the movement into the watch case, and the best way to do this and have it lined up is by pushing the watch case onto the movement. And here you see I've got the little steel washer in, and now I screw on the back of the watch case, which is this clear glass watch back, and I'm still having an issue. So I thought that this piece would save me and allow me to keep the modification plate on, but really when I put the watch case back on, it prevents this movement guard from spinning, and that prevents the watch from winding, and that prevents the watch from working. So I tried this several times, and then you can see as I'm screwing it in, really the movement guard can't spin around freely. So I make the executive decision to remove that modification plate. So my watch will just have the normal silver movement guard and not this patent turquoise one. But I'll keep that and maybe use it on a different build. So there's the case with the movement inside and all the hands added. I think it looks great. But as I said, I'm going to remove the modification plate. But I think moving on, I just want to get the actual crown stem to the right length, and then I'll remove the modification plate and put everything back together. So what I need to do is put the crown stem into the movement and make sure I get the perfect length and then cut it down to size. So there is a tool that you can buy where you measure with a digital display the length of crown stem that you need to cut off, so that you can get it perfect. I didn't have one of those. I should have just got one, but I rather just went in with the tweezers, and I have just off screen a piece of paper where I write the measurement, and then I'm going to cut little pieces off the crown stem little by little, sand it down, put it back, and get it to the right length. So this was a bit of an iterative process for me, and I had to stop halfway through um, to buy that movement holder as well, which I think really is imperative. So I've taken the movement out um, and measure the crown stem, cut it, screw on the crown. I think all's working well now. So I remove the crown stem and the crown from the stem, and then add some Loctite, um, and then add the crown permanently onto the crown stem. So now just winding the watch, checking that the movement runs fine and that I've got it to the perfect length for being able to set the watch, set the date, and not allow any gap between that little washer on the crown stem and the crown once I've screwed it in. So once you've got the crown stem perfectly fit, you want to just check that you can pull it out to the first stop and change the date, and then pull it up to the second stop and change the hour and the minute hands. And so once you've got that all done, you want to make one final check that everything's lined up, that when your hour hand and your GMT hand reach 12 o'clock, your date clicks right over. And so you can see my alignment was a little bit out there. And so I'm just trying to fit everything back together, get everything aligned, so that I can have good timekeeping. So I'm just cleaning the watch case now, making sure there's no dust, that the movement's clean. And now I'm going to remove this modification plate that I initially placed on to the movement guard. So I use this case back removal tool, just slide it under, carefully making sure that I remove that double-sided tape and making sure that it's clean and all the glue is removed as well. So this is not all within the shot, unfortunately, but there we are. I add the movement to the watch case, push it down carefully using the plastic part of the movement, give it another blast of air to get rid of any dust, and there the case back fits perfectly, allowing the movement guard to spin around freely so that the watch can wind, and the crown stem is the perfect length. Now I'm going to set the time and the date, first by winding the watch, and then checking that I can screw the crown in to stop it from moving. So there we are. I think it looks great. Yeah, what a process. But in the end, it all looked pretty good. So the last thing I'm going to do is add the bracelet. This is a steel bracelet that came with this watch case. It's pretty heavy, and I think it looks really cool, and it's the look I was going for. I put this into high speed so you guys don't have to sit through me struggling to get this on. And there you can see the case back with the movement looking great, even without that turquoise mod plate on the movement guard. So I just had to remove a couple of links to make the bracelet fit. And that's pretty simple to do. You just remove these screws, take out the number of links that you want to, put them back together, and then add the bracelet back onto the watch case. And there it is, guys. My NH34 GMT watch. You can see the second hand running there. Everything's lined up, the date's set, and the bracelet is pretty robust and fits perfectly. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next build. Peace.